Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a time when the world feels, I don't know, chaotic, uncertain, maybe even overwhelming. For one individual, like they shared in the Substack article, finding order in chaos through books, two really powerful outlets emerged. Consistent exercise, yeah, but also, crucially, reading.
Yeah, and what really jumps out in that article is how reading became like a source of staying grounded.
Hmm.
The author found that, with fewer usual activities, time actually expanded. It created this amazing space for like deep immersion. They describe it as being cocooned in reading books, really immersed in the journey, the stories. It's interesting how that extra time turned into this opportunity.
Exactly. And that's pretty much our mission for this deep dive today. We want to pull out those learnings and gems from the specific books mentioned in the article. Think of it as maybe a shortcut for you, the listener, finding valuable insights from this curated list. Just like the author hoped to inspire people. And just so you know, we're covering them in the order the author read them, not ranking them or anything. So let's dive in.
Okay, so we'll start where the article does, right? With that connection between moving your body and grounding your mind. The author mentions this running streak, like over 400 days now, that's real dedication. But beyond just, putting one foot in front of the other, what's the deeper why? And for that, we can look at Tom Foreman's book, My Year of Running Dangerously.
Right. Foreman gives this really profound answer when his daughter asks him, "Why do you do it?" He says, "Running puts me in touch with the moment and reminds me how each one is rare and precious." Um, for him, it sort of pushes all the bad things aside and brings all the good my way. He does for exaltation, beauty, joy, and art. That's pretty powerful. And thinking bigger, it's about showing his daughters that, life is worth more than just living. It is worth loving deeply and passionately, looking forward to this endless road.
Yeah. It's not just about the running itself, is it? It's finding that deep why for any consistent effort, whether it's habits or work or anything. How often do we really connect our daily actions to something that profound? And this idea of deliberate choice, that's also really central in Dina Castor's book, Let Your Mind Run.
Oh, definitely. Castor zooms right in on the power of choice. She says, "The power of a single positive choice is the first step into the story we want to create, the outcome we desire." It really comes down to those micro decisions, the small things we choose moment by moment. And sometimes finding that positive path takes real effort, that relentless pursuit she talks about. But she insists a better outlook is always there and well worth chasing. Because on the other side, potential and possibility. It's like building your future self one little choice at a time.
So those tiny choices, they unlock bigger things.
Hmm.
And that kind of leads naturally into thinking about broader happiness, about purpose, which is something Tony Hsieh really dug into in Delivering Happiness.
Yeah, she asks some really big questions for people and for companies. Things like, are you working towards maximizing your happiness each day? Or what is the net effect of your existence on the total amount of happiness in the world each day? Heavy stuff. But also practical things. What are your values? What are you passionate about? What inspires you? What is your goal in life? It's like a framework, right, for designing a life or even a business that actually means something. He even asks, about a company's higher purpose and then turns it back. What is your higher purpose?
Right. It reminds me of that quote from Bertus Berry, when you walk with purpose, you collide with destiny. It reinforces that same idea. But what happens when that purpose feels forced or you're really conflicted about your path? That brings us to Andre Agassi's memoir, Open, which is incredibly raw.
Oh, Open is definitely no holds barred. It's kind of shocking, actually, to learn he loathed tennis for most of his playing years, even though his father pushed him into it relentlessly. You see all his struggles, his dilemmas, these conflicts between being perfect and self-destructive. It's all out there. The way he opens the book just grabs you. "I open my eyes and don't know where I am or who I am." He says, "Not all that unusual. I have spent half my life not knowing." Still, this feels different. The confusion is more frightening, more total. Really sets the scene for that internal battle.
Wow. That's such a stark contrast to Foreman or Castor finding joy and purpose. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many people feel trapped, even if they look successful on the outside? Does Agassi's story kind of show the dark side? Like, if the order you find is based on something you hate?
I think it absolutely does.
Yeah.
It suggests that, real order has to come from inside, from being aligned with who you genuinely are. Even if getting there involves a lot of conflict, like it did for him, his journey is just a powerful reminder, isn't it? External success doesn't always mean internal peace. Not at all.
Okay, so from those really intense personal battles, let's shift gears, big time. Let's look at the grand scale, the cosmos. This next bit is about navigating, well, everything. the universe and our daily worlds, starting with Stephen W. Hawking's The Theory of Everything.
Right, Hawking asks probably the most fundamental question. Why does the universe go to all the bother of existing? And he had this vision, right, that if we ever find a complete theory, like a theory of everything, it shouldn't just be for a few scientists. It should be understandable by everyone. He felt that finding that answer, that understanding, would be the ultimate triumph of human reason. Because, as he put it, for then we would know the mind of God. A huge, huge idea.
A massive idea. And sticking with the cosmos, Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry is another great one mentioned. Tyson is just amazing at making these huge, complex ideas feel, well, approachable. Apparently, the Substack author even went out and bought their first telescope after reading it.
Yeah, he has that effect. And Tyson gives what he calls a far nobler reason for exploring space beyond just curiosity. He says, the day our knowledge of the cosmos ceases to expand, we risk regressing to the childish view that the universe figuratively and literally revolves around us.
It's really a call for humility, isn't it? And for constant learning, remembering our actual place in the universe.
And speaking of the universe's strangeness from Albert Einstein's relativity, we get that really simple but mind-bending statement, time is an illusion. Okay, so that book is obviously heavy on the science, but what's the gem there for, the rest of us? It is profound, isn't it? Just that idea. If time, something we experience, is so constant, so real, could be an illusion. Well, it makes you question everything, right? All our perceptions of reality. I think the gem there is maybe about questioning our most basic assumptions about everything. Sometimes when things feel chaotic, maybe it's our own framework, our own understanding that needs adjusting. It suggests order isn't always something external to find, but maybe something we construct or see differently by changing how we think at a fundamental level.
That's a really interesting take, challenging assumptions as a way to find new order.
Yeah.
Okay. But, while the universe has these grand, maybe abstract principles down here on Earth, we need practical stuff. So how do we bring some of that clarity down and prevent errors in our everyday systems? Atul Gawande has some powerful answers in the Checklist Manifesto, how to get things right.
Gawande basically says we fail for two main reasons. Ignorance, just not knowing enough, and ineptitude, knowing what to do, but messing it up anyway. He points out that when things get complex, our memory and attention just can't keep up. We overlook the mundane, routine matters. And this gets really risky in what he calls all or none processes.
Right. What's an all or none process exactly? Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about maybe assembling something complicated like an engine. If you forget one tiny critical seal, doesn't matter how perfectly you did everything else, the whole thing might fail. It's where, like he says, if you miss just one key thing, you might as well not have made the effort at all. And we all have that tendency, right, to skip steps we think aren't needed. We say, this has never been a problem before, until one day it is. That's the danger.
And that's where checklists come in. They seem like such a simple fix, but they protect against those failures. They remind us of the minimum necessary steps, right? You can make them explicit, and they kind of instill a kind of discipline of higher performance. I admit, I actually started using a mental checklist for leaving the house after reading about this stuff. Keys, wallet, phone helps. The book uses great real-world examples, too. It makes it very concrete. And this structured thinking, it actually connects, maybe surprisingly, to creativity and innovation, which brings us to Apple's design process in Ken Kosianda's book, Creative Selection.
Yeah, Kosianda breaks down Apple's approach into these 7 essential elements.
Denial.
They are inspiration, collaboration, craft, diligence, decisiveness, taste, and empathy. These are like the guiding principles behind how they create stuff. And what's really fascinating is how they mix that structure with creating experiences that feel really intuitive, almost effortless.
Right, and the book talks about balancing algorithms and heuristics, which might sound technical, but think of it like this. An algorithm is like a precise recipe. Follow it exactly, get the same cake every time. A heuristic is more like a rule of thumb, a shortcut, like glancing at the sky to guess if it'll rain. Not always perfect, but fast and often good enough. Kosianda uses the iPhone photo swipe example. Your finger movement is judged by a heuristic. That heuristic feeds into the animation code, an algorithm to move the photo to a specific spot, another algorithm, at a certain speed algorithm again. Then easing to a stop with carefully designed animation timing, that's a heuristic. It's that blend, code and feel.
Exactly. And this all ties into Apple's focus on using concrete and specific demos. These demos act as handholds and footholds for figuring out if an idea is actually worthwhile. Cosienda is clear. Every major feature on the iPhone started as a demo. It's not about abstract ideas on a whiteboard. It's about building something real, something you can interact with right from the start.
Okay, let's just focus again. Now looking at the challenges, the realities, and maybe the triumphs of people working together on big things, big ambitions. Starting with the, let's say, the gritty side of building a company.
Yeah. Build a Company by Harpreet Grover and Vibhor Goyal is described as surprisingly and refreshingly candid. It just states it plainly. The life of an entrepreneur is not easy. No sugarcoating. It really shows the not-so-glamorous life and stresses that founders have to go through. They even share a specific regret from their own company, CoCubes. They regret not being able to provide equal opportunities to students from every college. Why? Because of bureaucracy prevalent in large corporate hiring. And the book apparently also touches upon aspects of cronyism that exists in the startup ecosystem, at least in India. It's a real dose of reality.
That does sound refreshingly honest. A needed perspective, maybe. Now, let's go from the startup world to, well, arguably one of humanity's most epic endeavors, and a really unique perspective on what it means to contribute. Michael Collins carrying the fire.
Right, Michael Collins, the third crew member on Apollo 11. The command module pilot, he had these absolutely vital jobs like undocking and then redocking the lunar module. Critical stuff, and basically getting Apollo 11 back safely to Earth. But what's really mind-blowing is he had to be prepared to fly back alone. In case of the very real possibility that Neil and Buzz do not make it back from the moon alive, imagine that pressure. He was the lifeline.
It's almost impossible to imagine being in that situation. Utterly alone, potentially. And Collins talks about that feeling, circling the dark side of the moon, being truly alone, but he describes it not as fear or loneliness, but as awareness, anticipation, satisfaction, confidence, almost exultation. Wow, and when people asked if he felt, shortchanged, because he didn't walk on the moon, his answer is just incredible perspective. He said, basically, look, I know that I would be a liar or a fool if I said that I have the best of the 3 Apollo 11 seats, but I can say with truth and equanimity that I am perfectly satisfied with the one I have. He saw it as structured for 3 people, and his part was as necessary as either of the other 2. That really challenges how we usually think about fame or being the star, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. His view on contribution, even when you're not the one in the spotlight, is so powerful. Collins also had this really balanced perspective on spending money on space versus needs here on Earth. In a speech back in '69, he put it beautifully, something like, "We can ignore neither the wealth of the Indies, meaning exploration, nor the realities of the immediate needs of our cities, our citizens, our civics." He said, "We cannot launch our probes from a springboard of poverty, discrimination, or unrest, but neither can we wait until each and every terrestrial problem has been solved." Such foresight.
That is a remarkably balanced way to put it. Still relevant today, I think. And speaking of tackling big, complex problems, whether in space or here, Ozan Varen's Think Like a Rocket Scientist offers a fundamental approach.
Yeah, a huge takeaway from Varen's book is this idea of first principles thinking. Basically, it means breaking a problem down, way down, to its absolute most fundamental truths. Like, don't start with assumptions about how things are. Start with the basic physics or the core facts you absolutely know are true. He quotes Carl Sagan supporting this idea, saying, "When faced with 2 hypotheses that explain data equally well, you should choose the simpler." Occam's razor, essentially.
Right. And that reinforces the idea that simple is sophisticated. It makes sense. Simple also has fewer points of failure. Complicated things break more easily. Well, it really pushes back against our tendency to make things more complex than they need to be, doesn't it? Makes you think, where do we default to complexity when simplicity might be better, and what's the hidden cost? It's a great reminder. Okay, last section. Let's shift gears one more time to some really practical wisdom. This is about managing personal resources, money, but also really life choices from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Housel starts with a pretty grounding idea. Economics is the story of cycles. Things come, things go. Just accepting that volatility is normal. And his practical advice is gold. Like, most important part of every plan is planning on your plan, not going according to plan. Love that. He talks about finding humility when things are going right and forgiveness when they go wrong. And maybe the simplest advice, less ego, more wealth. It's so much about behavior, not just spreadsheets.
Yeah, and he gives you, the listener, some really solid, direct advice, too. Like, manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night. That's the real goal, right? He stresses if you want to do better as an investor, the single most powerful thing you can do is increase your time horizon. Think long term. And this one is kind of freeing. Become okay with a lot of things going wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. It takes the pressure off being perfect.
Absolutely. And there's more just really actionable stuff in there. Use money to gain control over your time. That's huge. Control over time is real wealth. Be nicer and less flashy. Save. Just save. You don't need a specific reason to save. It's about building that buffer, that security. It's fundamental behavior.
He really does boil it down. And he wraps up with these powerful points. Define the cost of success and be ready to pay it. Success isn't free. Worship room for error. Build in margins. Don't cut things too fine. Avoid the extreme ends of financial decisions. Stay balanced. Remember that luck and risks are siblings. Acknowledge both. Define the game you are playing. Know your own goals and timeline. And finally, respect the mess. Life and finance aren't neat and tidy. It's a whole philosophy, really. Wow. So looking back across all these books, it's quite a journey, isn't it? From like the inner battles of athletes and the grit of entrepreneurs, all the way to the biggest questions about the universe, and then down to the nitty-gritty of checklists and managing money. It really shows how these different nuggets of wisdom pulled from reading can genuinely provide some frameworks, maybe find some order in the chaos, like the article suggested.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how this collection of insights, seemingly from all over the place, can actually build a pretty comprehensive way to think about navigating life. Which, brings up an interesting question for you, listening right now. Thinking about that original Substack author, how might you curate your own reading list? Or maybe it's not just books, maybe it's podcasts, articles, conversations you've had. How could you pull together diverse sources you've consumed to find maybe unique connections or some surprising clarity for whatever challenges or big questions you're dealing with right now? Something to think about.